It's funny. I was in an electronics store the other day just kind of looking at laptops.
Hmm.
And it hit me how much we as consumers are just completely obsessed with new.
Oh, absolutely. The latest, the greatest.
Exactly. We want the fastest processor, the screen that does some crazy new trick, features nobody else has. We basically equate complexity and, novelty with being better.
It's the standard innovation loop, right? Something's been around for, say, 40 years. We just assume it has to be obsolete.
Right.
Well,
But
okay.
then you look at the world of high-stakes tools. I'm thinking specifically about defensive tools where the cost of failure isn't a frozen screen, it's a catastrophe.
And that whole logic gets turned on its head.
Completely.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the best choice is often the most boring choice.
It is a total inversion of values.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the stakes really go up, you stop looking for features and you start looking for predictability. You want the thing that's so boring it's almost invisible.
And that is exactly where we're going today.
Yeah.
We are doing a deep dive into this really fascinating article. It's called Glock 1719 in 9mm. Best choice for responsible civilians.
It's from Valor Tech, written by a firearms instructor named Herfel.
And look, before anyone tunes out thinking this is just some kind of commercial, it is not.
Not at all. In fact, what makes Herfel's piece so interesting is that he barely talks about the gun as, a shiny product. He talks about it as a node in a logistical network.
A logistical network, I love that.
He's analyzing why, in a market that's just flooded with flashier or cheaper or more ergonomic options, the Glock 17 and 19, they just remain the practical standard.
So it's really a lesson in systems thinking. We're going to be talking about cognitive load, supply chain resilience, and what Herschel calls the ecosystem of ownership.
Which, it sounds like we're discussing global shipping, but really we're talking about personal safety.
So let's start with the human element, because Herschel kicks this off with a concept that, honestly, it applies to so much more than just self-defense.
I know the quote you mean.
He says, in real defensive incidents, people do not rise to their hopes, they fall to their habits. It hits hard.
It's basically the foundational axiom of stress physiology. You hear it in aviation, in medicine, in combat. We all have this sort of movie playing in our heads where if danger strikes, we're going to be an action hero.
Right. Cool, calm, collected.
Yeah, we think we'll be precise, we'll be cool, we'll handle this complex machine perfectly. But Herfel's reminding us that, biology doesn't care about our movies.
So just from a medical standpoint, what is actually happening to your brain under that kind of threat? Why can't we just rise to the occasion?
It's a physiological cascade, a
Yeah.
huge one. The second you perceive a life threat, you get this massive dump of cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes, instantly, over 140 beats per minute.
Wow.
And when that happens, your body prioritizes large muscle groups for fighting or for running. So as a result, you lose fine motor skills. Your hands get clumsy. You get tunnel vision. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain for complex problem solving, it basically goes offline. You're left with your reptile brain.
So if your entire plan relies on you remembering to, flip a tiny lever on the side of a pistol, or remembering that this button does X, but only when the slide is in Y position.
You are setting yourself up to fail. You
Yeah.
physically can't perform those complex tasks when your hands are shaking and your brain is just screaming.
I see.
And this is why Herfel points to the Glock architecture as sort of the gold standard for this specific problem. To someone new to this, Glocks are often criticized for being blocks. They're boxy, they're plastic.
Tactical Tupperware, isn't that the nickname?
That's the one. But Herfel argues that blocky nature, that's the feature, not the bug. It all comes down to what's called the manual of arms.
Okay, let's unpack that. Manual of arms. It sounds really formal.
It does, but it's just industry speak for how you operate the machine.
The user interface.
Exactly. How do you load it? How do you clear a jam? How do you make it fire on a Glock? That whole process it's binary. Point, press. There are no external safety levers you have to remember to disengage.
Okay.
No decocking levers. The trigger pull is the exact same every single time, from the first shot to the last.
And that's a big deal. It's different from some older designs, right? I remember my grandfather had a pistol where the first trigger pull was really, really long and heavy. And then all the ones after that were short and light.
Yep. That's called double action, single action. And it's a valid mechanism. Lots of experts use it really well. But it introduces a variable. You have to learn two different trigger pulls.
And Herfel's point is, why add another variable to an equation that is already completely chaotic?
Under stress, variables kill. You want a binary system.
It's like the difference between driving an automatic and a stick shift in heavy traffic while your car is on fire.
Yeah.
You just do not want to be thinking about the clutch.
You just want to hit the gas and steer. And that's the whole cognitive load argument. The Glock just removes that mechanical friction so you can spend your very limited mental bandwidth on the actual situation.
Scanning for threats, finding cover.
Right. Communicating, not fighting with the tool that's in your hand.
So simplicity is safety. But then Harfell pivots to something that I found really, really insightful. This is where the logistics nerd in me got excited. He moves away from the gun itself and starts talking about the ecosystem. He says, quote, "Your pistol is only as good as your ecosystem."
This is the part that first-time buyers almost always ignore. They just look at the gun in the glass case as a standalone object.
And it's not.
Not at all. A firearm is just the center of a system. It needs fuel, which is ammunition. It needs a support structure, like holsters. It needs maintenance, part springs, sights, magazines.
And this is where that network effect really comes into play, right? Because the Glock 17 and 19 are the most popular pistols in the world. That ecosystem is just massive.
It's the iPhone of firearms. It really is. Think about it. If you buy some obscure smartphone from a tiny company because it has a cool screen, that's great until you need a case for it.
Right.
Or a charger. Can you walk into a random gas station and buy a charging cable for it? Probably not. You have to order it online, wait a week. If that charger breaks, your phone's a brick.
But if you've got an iPhone, you can buy a charging cable at the grocery store checkout.
That's the Glock advantage. Harfell specifically points to holsters. A holster isn't just a pouch. It is a critical safety device. It has to cover the trigger. If you buy a rare, cool-looking pistol, you might find one company that makes a holster for it. And maybe that holster isn't comfortable or it doesn't fit you right.
So you end up just not carrying it.
Or
throwing it in a bag, which defeats the entire purpose.
Exactly. With a Glock 17 or 19, you can go on basically any website and find hundreds of options. Concealed carry, open carry, car mounts, bedside safes. The market caters to the standard. You can fit the gear to your life, not the other way around.
It solves a logistics problem before you even knew you had one.
And that goes for magazines, too. Magazines are the fuel tanks. They're consumable items. Springs wear out. Feed lips can crack if you drop them.
So if you have that exotic gun, finding a replacement magazine becomes a whole project.
A huge project. You're on forums. You're paying $50, $60 for one magazine, waiting for it to ship.
Whereas with a Glock,
it's a standard errand. You can buy them in blister packs at a big box store for $20. They are everywhere. Harfell calls this redundancy.
So if the world gets complicated, supply chains break down, your safety doesn't depend on a package arriving from overseas.
That bleeds right into his next section on emergency response capability. He uses a phrase that I think everyone can relate to these days: supply chain resilience.
And we're not necessarily talking about a zombie apocalypse here.
No, and he's careful about that. He's not sounding like a doomsday prepper. He's talking about realistic, mundane disruptions, hurricanes, power outages, civil unrest, or just manufacturing shortages like we saw during the pandemic.
In those moments, commonality is king.
He uses the Toyota Corolla effect. I love that analogy.
It's perfect.
It really is. If the supply chain snaps, you can probably still find an alternator for a 2010 Corolla. Every mechanic knows how to fix them blindfolded, parts are everywhere. But if you're driving a vintage Italian sports car, you're walking.
And in this metaphor, the Glock is the Corolla.
It's the Corolla, the Honda Civic, and the Ford F-150 all rolled into one. Harfell notes that if something small breaks internally, a trigger spring, a firing pin, the probability of finding that part locally is infinitely higher with a Glock.
He also frames this for the busy professional, which I thought was a really smart way to define the audience.
Yes, that's a key distinction. The busy professional isn't a gun nut. They don't want a new hobby. They have a job, kids, a lawn to mow.
Right.
They don't want to spend their Saturday filing down parts to make them fit or scouring the internet for one specific screw. They need a tool with minimal overhead.
They want the tool to be ready so they can focus on their life, not on maintaining the tool.
Yeah. High readiness, low maintenance. That's the efficiency of the standard. You want an appliance, not a project.
Now, there's another layer to this standardization idea that I thought was just brilliant, and it applies to families. He talks about the one platform household.
This is one of the most actionable pieces of advice in the whole article, and it's something most people never, ever consider until it's too late.
It's the idea that everyone in the house who is trained, say a husband and wife or partners, should all rely on the same type of firearm.
Think about that stress aspect we talked about. It's 3:00 a.m., Glass breaks downstairs. It is dark, it's chaotic, it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
If one partner trains on a pistol with a thumb safety and the other trains on one with a grip safety, and in all that confusion they grab the wrong gun.
They might try to disengage a safety that isn't even there, or forget to disengage one that is.
And that hesitation, that fumbling, it could be the difference between life and death. Or worse, it causes an accident because the controls just feel wrong in their hands. Purcell argues for treating the household defense plan like a standardized fleet.
Like a police department. They don't just let every officer carry whatever they feel like.
Exactly. Standardizing creates a shared mental model. If I pick up your gun, I know exactly how it works. If you pick up mine, same deal. You can share magazines, you can share holsters. It just streamlines the entire concept of home defense.
That makes so much sense. It's treating safety like a system, not just a collection of objects.
Yep.
Okay, so we've established the why, the whole logic behind the platform. Let's talk about the what. Hurrifeld gets specific on hardware. He says the Glock 17 and the Glock 19, and he specifies the 9mm cartridge. So why 9mm? Why not something bigger?
Physics and economics, really. There used to be this huge debate about stopping power, but modern bullet technology has really leveled the playing field.
Good.
Hurrifeld points out that 9mm offers manageable recoil.
Which means you can shoot it faster and more accurately?
Exactly. If a gun hurts your hand every time you pull the trigger, which some of the larger calibers can do, you develop a flinch. You start to anticipate the recoil. And if it hurts, well, you won't want to practice.
Which leads right into the economic argument.
For sure. 9mm is the cheapest, most available centerfire ammo there is. Hurrifeld is really clear on this. Skill is built through repetition. A smaller bullet that you can put exactly where it needs to go every time is way better than a massive bullet that you miss with because you never trained.
It's the 10,000 hours rule, or maybe the 1,000 rounds rule. 9mm makes high-volume training affordable.
Precisely.
So 9mm is the engine. What about the chassis? We have the 17 and the 19.
Mm-hmm.
To an outsider, they look basically identical. What's the real difference?
It just comes down to size and roll. The Glock 17 is the full-size service pistol, standard grip, longer barrel. The Glock 19 is the compact. It's just slightly shorter in the grip and the barrel. We're talking about half an inch difference in key spots.
So how does someone shoot? He calls it a decision matrix.
Think of the Glock 19 as the crossover SUV. It's the do-it-all option. It's small enough to conceal on your body so you can carry it comfortably without it printing through your shirt. But it's still large enough to get a full grip on it and shoot it like a full-size pistol. If you can only have one, the 19 is usually the answer.
And the 17.
The 17 is the anchor. Because it's larger, it's harder to conceal. But that extra size and weight makes it even softer to shoot. It holds more ammunition. Hurrifeld suggests the 17 is better as a dedicated home defense gun, something that lives in a quick-access safe, or for someone who plans to spend a ton of time at the range.
But because they're in the same family, you can switch between them seamlessly.
The muscle memory is 100% transferable. You could carry a 19 during the day, have a 17 on the nightstand, and your hands would never know the difference in how they operate.
We're getting near the end, but we have to talk about the responsibility part of the title. Hurrifeld isn't just handing out shopping advice here.
No, he issues a pretty stern warning. Set up for safety, not style.
This feels critical, especially now.
Oh, yeah. We live in the Instagram era. You see these Gucci Glocks, bright colors, slides with holes cut in them, super light triggers, all these titanium parts. Hurrifeld is just bringing us back to reality. He says basically, don't mess with the internals.
Because reliability is priority number one.
Right. If you start swapping out factory parts for high-performance aftermarket racing parts, you're often introducing new failure points. A defensive tool needs to work when it's dirty, when it's dry, when it's been dropped. The factory standard is usually the most reliable way to go.
He gives a checklist of non-negotiables, things you actually do need.
First and foremost, a quality holster. And he's very specific. It must fully cover the trigger guard.
Why is that so important? I feel like that's a detail people overlook.
It is the single most important safety rule for carrying a gun like this. Remember, the Glock has no manual safety lever. The safety is built into the trigger. So if something keys, a jacket drawstring, a piece of worn leather gets inside that trigger guard while you're putting the gun away, it will fire. The holster is the safety. A rigid material covering the trigger makes the gun inert.
That is a crucial distinction. The holster is part of the safety system. What else is on his list?
High visibility sights. The standard plastic sights on a Glock are kind of their weak point. People call them placeholder sights. He recommends swapping them for good steel sights that you can see in low light.
and maintenance.
Boring, unsexy maintenance. Replacing recoil springs every few thousand rounds, checking your magazine followers, just treating it like a machine that has a service life.
But the last requirement isn't something you can buy.
Training. Herfel ends with this. The gear means nothing without the ability to use it safely. You can buy the perfect gun, the best holster, 1,000 rounds of ammo, but if you don't know how to draw it safely, how to identify a threat, how to make ethical decisions under extreme pressure, you're a liability, not an asset.
So the tool just removes the mechanical friction. You still have to install the software in your own head.
That's it exactly. The Glock just gets out of your way so you can focus on the real work.
You know, when you strip this all back, the lesson here is really about the value of standardization in a world that's getting more and more complex.
It really is. We started with guns, but this logic applies everywhere.
The software your company uses, the car you drive, the tools in your garage.
There's a tax on being exotic. When you choose the standard option, you aren't being boring. You're buying yourself time. You're buying yourself mental bandwidth.
You're making sure that when things break, and they always do, they can be fixed. That support is available. It's about prioritizing the outcome over the object.
We confuse optimal on paper with optimal in reality. A custom race gun might be better in a vacuum, but in the real world of logistics and stress and scarcity, the optimal choice is the one that works every time and has a spare part at the hardware store down the street. That's the logic of logistics.
People do not rise to their hopes. They fall to their habits. That quote is really going to stick with me. It's a reminder that under pressure, we are only as good as our simplest, most ingrained behaviors.
And our equipment should support those habits, not get in their way.
Well said. So here's a thought I want to leave you with today. Look at the other areas of your life outside of this topic. Where are you choosing the exotic or complex option just because it feels special? And where would the boring, standard option actually give you more freedom and more reliability? Are you setting yourself up to rise to a hope? Or are you preparing to fall to a habit?
That's the question.
Thanks for deep diving with us today. Stay curious, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.